So I think one reason why, and I do think this was subconscious, but I think one reason why my ex-abusive partner liked to be so adamant that he was, that it wasn't him, that it was me, was because he felt like, oh, he knows that he loves me and that he'll forgive me and that he's not going to leave me, even if I'm doing all this bad stuff. But he doesn't know that if he's the one, that I won't leave him, that I won't forgive him. I think one reason why he fought as hard as he did to shift blame from himself to me, among like the other reasons that we usually talk about in the subreddit, was related to that. He trusted himself not to leave. He didn't trust me not to leave. So I've talked before about low distress tolerance, and that was definitely something that I wrestle with, that I've actively worked on, that I discovered that I had, and was a big factor, a big risk factor for me potentially being abusive. Basically, it breaks down to emotional regulation, being able to be emotionally regulated. Looking back on it, what I think that my ex-partner was dealing with was, instead of low distress tolerance, it was low shame tolerance. He couldn't handle feeling shame, and so engaged in a lot of abusive behaviors to shift blame from himself to me, generally speaking, or to the other person that he was involved with. When he was going back and forth between us, he was getting each one of us explaining how the other person was wrong. Like, oh, she's wrong. It's her. It's not you, it's her. You should be with me. And so that had to feel pretty good. He did get to a point, though, because we were both like, okay, but also you're treating me badly. So he did get to the point where he started to get like really, he was like, he would have cheated on me. And was like, I can't, I'm overwhelmed. I can't deal with this. It's like, man, what the fuck is wrong with you? Oh, I'm still mad about that. I'm not going to lie. Just like, again, and I've talked about before, like their feelings are always more important. Literally, no matter what's going on. Like he was cheating on me and still talking about like nonsense, trivial stuff from the beginning. Because they have to be right, I guess. So that was one thing that he mentioned quite a bit, like he wanted to be with somebody who could admit they were wrong. And what he wasn't understanding was that behind that was this driving need that he has to be right. And not just be right, but have everybody else agree. Everybody else, admit he's right. When I was talking in the video about paradigms, for example, if you have a paradigm, right, that I need people to admit they're wrong, really the flip side of that is I need to feel right. And also, you're going to be the kind of person who gets involved with people or gets into situations that you get to feel right in and that the other person is wrong about. So a lot of the people, I didn't understand why he was choosing to be around the people he was being around. I was like, you don't respect any of these people. I'm confused. Why are they in your life? And I didn't, part of the reason was so that he could feel that he was right. So a lot of these abusive behaviors, like projection, the DARVO, so like defensiveness, arguing, reversing victim and offender, attacking behaviors, the desire to control narratives, control reality, image management, all of that is this circus to avoid feeling shame. Low shame tolerance. Can't handle it. One of the reasons why he would continue to come back over and, because I saw very quickly that he had abusive ways of doing things. What I didn't get a handle on, though, back then, I didn't understand the difference. I knew that he was doing abusive things, and so I would leave him. I'm like, this is abusive. You're abusive, and I gotta leave. This isn't safe, emotionally or whatever. And he'd end up changing. He'd end up not doing the thing anymore. And I didn't have an understanding that just because, so I was looking at him going, oh wow, he grows. But I didn't understand underlying the behavior is the thought process that leads to that behavior. So just because he was stopping one behavior didn't stop the rest and didn't stop him from going to new ones. So he wasn't changing so much as he was like the T1000. He was new and improved. His abuse got more subtle. It got harder for me to identify it, to the point where I started going, is it me? Like, am I doing, what's happening here? I was so turned around. Yeah. And fortunately for me, he did a big boundary boo-boo. And he decided to go to my psychiatrist. But didn't tell him that he was already treating me, that my doctor was already treating me. So he shows up and he just thinks like, oh, I'm not going to share this information. Because that's what he does, is he controls what information other people have, to get what he wants. His feelings are always more important. Image management, based on stuff he said to me. I truly think he was looking for validation about certain things, and how validating would it be to be with my psychiatrist and have my psychiatrist tell him, oh yeah, she's abusive, which is not what happened at all. So my psychiatrist, he said to me, he's like, I told him, I was like, I am so sorry. I think he was planning on coming to see you. He asked me, like, how did I find my psychiatrist? Not, who's your psychiatrist so I can go to them. And he said to me, he was like, yeah, he's like, I knew 30 minutes in exactly who he was. And I was like, yeah, man, who do you think I talk about in therapy? Come on now. And as a result of conversations that I had, I got confirming information of exactly what was going on. It's like, okay, now I know what's going on here. That pattern of abuse, that controlling behavior, all stemming from this like drastic need to avoid shame, feeling shame at any cost. And we all, even, I don't want to say even, but, it's a human it's a human response. No one really wants to feel shame. Like, that's, I look back on things that I've done that I feel shame about, and it still gets me right here. I like to think of it though as, I've talked to people on the subreddit. There's one conversation in particular that I'm thinking of where the guy finally realizes he's abusive. And he starts telling people, like, no, you shouldn't shame me. I should be, I should be supported, and I should this and I should that. And I was like, man, you're still doing it. You're still trying to control how other people perceive you. You're trying to control how other people interact with you. You're trying to control the paradigm. You should feel some shame. Like, that's a thing you should feel. That'll help you not do this again. But you're still doing it. You're just doing it in a different way. So we gotta be really careful when people start to dictate, like, oh, it should be this way. Well, let me rephrase. When they start to dictate to you about what you should be doing, it's one thing to set a boundary for yourself. It's another to tell another person, something that they should be doing, We got to be really clear on like what's our lane and what's their lane. Let's see. Honestly, oh yeah, it's a constant for this person. It's constant. They're having to rearrange their reality so that they don't have to feel shame. And that means picking certain people to hang out with, or not hanging out with people at all. My ex doesn't really hold down like a real job. It's a very hard time when people tell him what to do. He feels like he should be the one who's making all the determinations. And that's just not how work goes unless you work for yourself. He started dating, it was really interesting. So he started dating this 20-year-old and at 32 or 33. So he's a good 12, 13 years older than she was. And I remember he made some comment to me about her being spoiled and how, she's never had to be on her own. And I legit was like, because guess who lives with his parents and has for a very long time? Guess who's never really lived on his own? Guess who doesn't really have a career? He kind of just does ad hoc stuff for people. When he was working, it was like, it was like, oh, I'm working at a club, working the front door, stuff like that. So for him to come for that girl, who's, by the way, 20, feeling that sense of superiority, like, oh, she's spoiled. She's never been on her own. Yeah, she's 20. Why? So what did he do? He went and he found somebody that he could feel more superior than, that doesn't trigger his sense of shame. That he felt like he could judge, but in a compassionate way. Like, it's okay for me to judge her because I care about her, and I love her. But see what I mean about that underlying lack of respect? He had that with me too. So you don't respect people, you're not going to treat them right, even if you feel like you love them and you mean it. You mean to. When he met me, actually, I wasn't working. I'd been a stay-at-home mom for 5 years. So I actually was like in a dependent situation also. But about a month after we met, I was like, oh, no, I can't. Let me get a job, whatever. So like very quickly, I started working on my own, making income enough to take care of me and my son and my home. I went from being dependent to independent. And I got to wonder if subconsciously that was part of the issue with us. It's a lot easier to feel like in this position of like benevolent authority, like, oh, I'm here to help you. I'm here to help fix things. I forgive you. There was that kind of vibe about it. And again, I don't think any of this is intended. His self-image is very much one of like, it's very different than what I'm describing. He would very much disagree with it. I'll tell you that. But like I said, he's been to my same therapy place. He's also been to my same psychiatrist. He called me at like 6 or 7 a.m. and my fiance at the time, overheard that call. So I've had enough people overhear our interactions, and also mutual friends, who've seen both of us, who've given me enough information to go, okay, my sense of reality on this is accurate. And I don't have to come to a place of like, oh, I hate him, I think he's a horrible, terrible person. But recognizing how his low shame tolerance warps his thinking, how his I need to be right paradigm, and I need not just that, I don't just need to be right, I need other people to admit they're wrong, how that paradigm is so toxic, but it's driving everything. Anyway, Hope you all are having a great holiday weekend. If you are in my country, try not to celebrate it. I'm trying not to celebrate it. Ironically, I have feelings. But anyway, we're doing our best. Talk to you next time.